No one was supposed to stop on that street. In San Diego's Old Harbor Industrial District, people drove faster than the speed limit, eyes forward, windows up, lives already somewhere better. It was the kind of place you passed through, not the kind you ended up in. So when the black SUV rolled to a silent stop in front of the rundown garage, it felt wrong, like a glitch in reality. The engine didn't sputter. It purred, low, controlled, expensive. The sound echoed off cracked concrete walls and rusted metal doors, announcing wealth in a neighborhood that had none. Conversations died mid-sentence. A mechanic dropped a wrench. Even the seagulls circling overhead seemed to pause. Inside the vehicle sat a girl who hadn't stood without pain since childhood. And outside the garage stood a man no one had ever listened to. In less than 10 minutes, a single question from that man would expose a failure that millions of dollars, elite doctors, and cutting-edge technology had missed for over a decade. Before the engine cooled, power would quietly shift. For Evan Brooks, the garage wasn't just a workplace, it was survival. Wedged between an abandoned warehouse and a rusting fence near the San Diego shipyards, the building leaned slightly to the left. The concrete floor was stained with oil, time, and memories that never quite faded. The fluorescent lights flickered like tired eyes refusing to close. Evan had grown up here, learned to fix engines here, and after life took everything else, he raised his daughter here. He wiped his hands on a rag as the SUV door opened. A woman stepped out first. She was tall, composed, dressed in a clean gray coat that looked wildly out of place on this street. Her posture was perfect, her expression carefully neutral, the look of someone used to controlling rooms far more polished than this one. Margaret Carter didn't belong in the Harbor District, and she knew it. Behind her, a young woman emerged slowly. Lily Carter, 19 years old, moved with the caution of someone who had learned the price of every step. Metal braces wrapped tightly around her legs, locking her joints into positions that fought her body instead of supporting it. Her face was calm, practiced, but her eyes carried exhaustion far beyond her age. The engine had overheated on Interstate 5. That was the excuse, but it wasn't the reason everything changed. "Can you take a look?" asked Margaret, her voice polite, distant, professional. Evan nodded, no questions. He popped the hood and leaned in, listening to the engine speak its familiar language. But even as he worked, his attention kept drifting. Lily was trying to sit. What should have been a simple movement became a quiet struggle. The brace resisted her knees. Her hips shifted unnaturally to compensate. She exhaled sharply, steadying herself as pain flared, then settled into its usual place. Evan noticed, not out of pity, out of instinct. Broken systems had always spoken to him. He closed the hood and walked over, kneeling in front of Lily so his eyes met hers, not towering above her, not looking down. "Can I ask you a question?" he said gently. "But does your brace hurt?" Lily froze, then nodded. "Yes, all the time." Margaret stiffened immediately. "Excuse me?" Evan didn't turn. His eyes traced the angles of the metal, the tension in the straps, the way Lily leaned slightly to the right. "Does your lower back ache after you walk?" he asked. Lily inhaled sharply. "Yes. How did you know?" Margaret's voice sharpened. "That brace cost more than most cars on this street. It was designed by the best orthopedic engineers in the country." Evan nodded slowly. "I'm sure it was." Then he said the sentence no one expected to hear in a forgotten garage in San Diego. "They designed it to look advanced, not to move like a human body," he said quietly. The street went silent. Lily felt something rise in her chest, something dangerous, fragile, and long buried. Hope. And Evan felt something else awaken inside him. A promise made years ago to someone who never got a second chance. And suddenly, that promise was standing right in front of him.
Imagine risking everything to give someone their first steps in over a decade in Sacramento, California. Even billionaires would stop and watch this. Like, subscribe, and comment below. Tell me which city and state you're watching from. Margaret Carter crossed her arms, the motion sharp and deliberate. "This is inappropriate," she said. "We came here for a radiator, not opinions." Evan stood slowly. He didn't argue, didn't apologize. He learned long ago that people who had already decided you were beneath them rarely listened to explanations. "I understand," he said. "I'll finish with the engine." He turned back toward the SUV, but Lily's voice stopped him. "Wait." It was soft, almost unsure, but it carried. Margaret spun around. "Lily!" "Please," Lily said, meeting her mother's eyes. "Just let him finish what he was saying." Silence stretched between them. The air felt heavier, charged with something no one wanted to name. Margaret exhaled through her nose. 2 minutes, she said tightly. "That's it." Evan nodded once and knelt again in front of Lily. "I'm not a doctor, I won't pretend to be, but machines and bodies have something in common. They fail where stress is forced instead of distributed." He gestured toward the brace. "Right now, this thing is doing the opposite. It's locking you into a position that looks aligned, but it's fighting your natural center of balance." Lily swallowed. "So why does it hurt more every year?" "Because you're growing around the wrong solution," Evan replied. "Your muscles are compensating for a design that doesn't move with you." Margaret scoffed. "You're diagnosing a complex medical condition by eye?" Evan finally looked at her. "No," he said calmly. "I'm recognizing a pattern I've seen before." He stood and walked toward the back of the garage. The space was cluttered. Half-finished engines, old tools, scrap metal most people would have thrown away. He reached beneath a workbench and pulled out a dusty steel frame. It looked nothing like a medical device. It looked like a machine part. "This was for my daughter," Evan said quietly. The name hung unspoken. "She was 8 when they told me she'd never walk without support. They sold me something like this," he nodded toward Lily's brace, "expensive, polished, impressive." He set the frame on the ground, and completely wrong. Lily leaned forward, eyes fixed. "I spent years watching her hurt. Every step looked right to everyone else. Every step was agony to her." Margaret's expression faltered just slightly. "So I started building," Evan said. "Not something rigid, something adaptive, something that shifted pressure instead of locking it." He knelt again, adjusting the frame so Lily could see the joints. "She walked better in 3 weeks than she had in 3 years. Silence. Then Lily whispered, "What happened?" Evan's hands stilled. "She passed," he said simply, "unrelated, but before she did, she ran." The word landed like a weight. Margaret's voice was quieter now. "Why are you telling us this?" Evan met Lily's eyes. "Because your brace is overcorrecting your right hip by 7 degrees. That's why your back hurts, and that's why no one's been able to fix it." Margaret stiffened. 7 degrees? "I can show you. No charge, no promises." Lily looked at her mother, really looked. For the first time in years, Margaret hesitated. Finally, she nodded. Evan adjusted one strap, just one. He shifted the angle slightly, loosened tension in a place no one had touched before. "Stand up," Evan said. Lily did, and for the first time she could remember, the pain didn't spike. Her breath caught,
Her knees didn't scream, her back didn't burn. She laughed, a sharp, broken sound that surprised even her. It's different. It doesn't hurt the same. Margaret stared, not at Evan, at her daughter. "How long have you known this?" Margaret asked quietly. Evan shook his head. "I didn't until 5 minutes ago." Margaret straightened. "You'll come with us," she said. "We have specialists, engineers, labs." Evan wiped his hands on the rag again, slow and deliberate. "No," he said, "I won't." That single word landed harder than anything he had said. Margaret blinked. "Do you know who I am?" Evan met her gaze. "Yes." "And you're refusing?" "I'm choosing," he replied. "If this is going to help her, it won't happen in a room full of people who have already decided what the answer should look like." Lily's voice was steady now. "I want him." Margaret turned sharply. "Lily!" "I've listened to everyone else my whole life. For once, I want to listen to someone who actually sees me." Margaret closed her eyes. When she opened them, something had changed. "Then we do this your way, for now." Evan nodded. Outside, the SUV's engine clicked softly as it cooled. Inside the garage, something far more valuable had just begun to warm up.
By the next morning, the small garage in Sacramento felt like a different world. Sunlight streamed through the half-open doors, illuminating the worn tools, the oil stains, and the quiet determination that seemed to hum in the air. Evan crouched on the concrete floor, tracing lines and angles on the new brace he had pulled from his workbench the night before. Every detail mattered. Every joint, every strap, every curve could mean the difference between pain and freedom. Lily watched him closely. She had never seen anyone work with such intensity. The faint tremor in her hands was gone. She had felt it herself for the first time the day before. The difference was subtle but profound. She could move without instinctively bracing herself against agony. Margaret arrived shortly after, her presence commanding but slightly subdued. The steel and aluminum frame of the brace in her hands made her think of boardrooms and lab reports. For all her wealth and influence, she had never seen a device built with this level of intuition. "If this fails," she said flatly, "there will be consequences." "I understand," Evan replied quietly, eyes never leaving the brace. "But if it succeeds, it will change everything." Margaret raised an eyebrow. "Everything?" Evan's gaze met hers, steady and unwavering. "Not just for her. For anyone who's been told their body can't work the way they want it to. For anyone who's been failed by systems designed to profit off limitations instead of solving them." Margaret hesitated. She was used to control, to ensuring outcomes with contracts, patents, and influence. But here, in this cramped garage, none of that mattered. She realized that she had been so busy protecting her daughter with money that she had overlooked the one thing that truly counted: seeing Lily as a human being, not a patient or a project. Evan lifted the brace carefully, inspecting every joint again. "I've adjusted the center of balance," he explained. "Everything now pivots at the hip, not the knee. The previous designs were forcing compensation in your spine, your hips, your knees. Every step created micro-trauma over years." Lily's eyes widened. "So, you really can make me walk?" "I can try," Evan said simply. His voice carried the weight of his own history. A promise made to a daughter who was gone too soon. A vow to never give up on someone in pain. "But you have to trust me completely. One misstep, one hesitation, and it won't work." Margaret bit her lip, conflicted. She was a woman of reason, of results. But in this garage, she saw more than mechanics and metal. She saw belief, patience, and empathy. She saw Evan, a man who had poured everything he was into learning the body's mechanics without degrees, licenses, or acclaim. And she knew that Lily, more than anyone, needed this. "Fine," Margaret said finally. You have 3 days, no interference, no lawsuits. If you fail, I walk away, you walk away. Understood? Understood. Evan nodded. For the next 3 days, the garage became a hub of quiet urgency. Evan worked tirelessly, dismantling old braces, recalculating angles, testing every movement himself before letting Lily try. He measured forces with protractors and strings, not just charts. He tested springs and silicone pads. He redesigned, adjusted, and rebuilt, every night falling asleep in exhaustion, waking before dawn, driven by the memory of a promise and the chance to change one life. On the 3rd day, the final test arrived. Margaret and Lily were there. Even the neighbors had started to peek through the garage windows, sensing something extraordinary unfolding. Evan helped Lily strap into the newly constructed brace. His hands were steady, though his heart thudded in anticipation. "Remember," he said softly, "start slow. Trust the support. Listen to your body, not the fear." Lily nodded, gripping his hand for a brief second before letting go. She planted her right foot, then her left. For the first time in years, both feet moved without resistance, without pain. She paused, looked at Margaret, and then slowly started walking. 1, 2, 3 steps. The garage erupted, not in shouts, but in awe. Margaret's hands flew to her mouth. Tears blurred her vision. Evan's eyes shone with a mixture of relief and triumph. "This is incredible," Margaret whispered. "How?" Evan looked down, exhausted but smiling. "Because we stopped trying to control everything with money and started listening to what her body was telling us." For Lily, the joy was indescribable. She ran, stumbled, laughed, and then stopped. She looked at Evan. You did it. I can walk." Evan nodded, his chest tight with emotion. "No, you did it. I just gave you the chance." Outside, neighbors clapped. Some cried. Even the stoic mechanics across the street peeked in with disbelief. Margaret, still trembling, took a deep breath. "You need protection. The companies that sold these braces, they won't like this." Evan shook his head. "Then let them try. I won't stop. Not now." Lily ran toward him, hugging him tightly. "Thank you," she whispered. "You believed in me when no one else did." Evan held her, the weight of years of struggle pressing on his shoulders. But for the first time, he felt hope. And in that small garage in Sacramento, a promise made long ago began to reshape more than a single life. It was about to challenge an entire system, one brace, one step, one belief at a time.
Word traveled fast. Within days, the story of Lily walking for the first time in over a decade reached far beyond Sacramento. Social media buzzed with clips of the young girl taking her first unassisted steps, her eyes wide with disbelief and joy. Local news stations ran segments praising the determination of the unassuming mechanic who had defied every expectation. But not everyone celebrated. The companies that had manufactured Lily's original brace were furious. Legal teams, regulatory agencies, and medical boards quickly mobilized. Letters, emails, and cease-and-desist notices began flooding Evan's small garage. The first one arrived in a plain white envelope with a stark warning. "You are operating without proper credentials. Cease all activity immediately or face legal action." Evan stared at the letter, his hands trembling. Zoe, ever observant, peeked over his shoulder. "Dad, are they going to take the brace away?" Evan shook his head slowly. "I don't know yet, but I won't stop trying to help her, and if they come for me, I'll face them, I promised." Meanwhile, Margaret's phone rang constantly. Lawyers from her company, skeptical board members, and representatives from the brace manufacturer were demanding meetings, explanations, and assurances. Her empire had thrived on rules, procedures, and the illusion of control. Now it was being challenged by a man with grease-stained hands and nothing but belief, skill, and intuition. At the garage, Evan continued testing. Every movement, every stride Lily took was carefully recorded. He adjusted, fine-tuned and reinforced the brace. He could feel the pressure building, not just in the material, but in the world outside. One wrong step, one miscalculation, and he could face lawsuits, fines, or worse. And yet, in those moments, Lily walked. She laughed. She ran small circles around the garage floor, each step defying the restrictions imposed by her previous braces. The joy was infectious. Even Zoe, watching her father and Lily, couldn't stop cheering. Then came the official notice. The state's Orthopedic Association had filed a formal complaint. They argued that Evan, without a license, had created a medical device and fitted it on a patient. The language was sharp, cold, and threatening. The penalty could include fines, criminal charges, and a ban from ever designing medical devices. Margaret turned to Evan, eyes wide with concern. "This isn't just legal red tape," she said. "They want to destroy your reputation. They want to make an example out of you." Evan wiped grease from his hands and looked at Lily, standing confidently in the brace. Her smile, radiant and defiant, anchored him. "They can try," he said quietly, "but I won't back down. This isn't about me. It's about her and anyone else who's been failed by the system." The days that followed were a whirlwind. Media outlets interviewed Evan, but most focused on the controversy rather than the miracle. Social media was a battlefield. Some hailed him as a hero, others warned of danger and recklessness. Comments from medical professionals debated ethics, legality, and standards. Every day, Evan received new documents threatening lawsuits, fines, and federal action. Despite the pressure, he continued working. Every evening, after long hours, he sat with Zoe at his workbench, showing her new adjustments, new prototypes, and explaining the mechanics in a way only a father could. It's not just about fixing the brace. It's about proving that kindness, focus, and understanding can succeed where money and rules fail. Margaret, torn between fear and admiration, stepped back from the boardroom she usually dominated. She had always believed control could solve everything, but here, control had failed. The miracle unfolding in Evan's garage defied charts, rules, and experience. She realized that for the first time, she wasn't the one in charge of her daughter's destiny. The climax came when a high-ranking official from the regulatory board requested an in-person inspection. Evan didn't panic. He welcomed them into the garage, showing every detail: the recalculated angles, the shock-absorbing joints, the weight distribution, the careful center of balance. He spoke with confidence and clarity, using real-time demonstrations with Lily to prove the brace's safety and effectiveness. The inspectors were taken aback. They had expected a reckless, unlicensed tinkerer. Instead, they found meticulous calculations, hands-on testing, and a deep understanding of human biomechanics. Lily walked across the garage floor effortlessly, her joy undeniable. Even the sternest inspectors could not ignore the reality before them. Evan held his breath, knowing this could either save him or seal his fate. Margaret watched, heart pounding, as the regulators whispered among themselves, noting down details, reviewing measurements, and asking questions. Finally, the lead inspector turned to Evan. This is unlike anything we've seen. You've demonstrated an understanding of human mechanics and safety that is extraordinary. We need to review this further, but we see promise here." Evan exhaled, but he knew the battle wasn't over. Legal challenges would continue, opposition would persist, but for the first time the system had been forced to acknowledge something impossible: that a man without credentials, but with knowledge, skill, and heart, could outperform institutions worth millions. Lily ran circles around the garage again, laughter echoing, and Evan smiled through the tension. He had won the first round, but the war was far from over, and he knew that for every miracle there would always be forces trying to suppress it. Yet in that small Sacramento garage, hope had taken root, strong, unyielding, and unstoppable. Weeks turned into months, but Evan never stopped. Legal letters continued arriving like a storm of warnings, each more intimidating than the last.
Yet in his garage in Sacramento, every step Lily took reminded him why he couldn't give up. He wasn't just fighting for her, he was fighting for every child, every family who had been failed by systems that valued procedure over people. Margaret stood quietly beside him one afternoon, watching Lily practice walking up and down the garage floor. Tears filled her eyes, but not from fear. This time they were tears of awe. "I never imagined someone like you could do this," she whispered. "You've given her life." Evan shook his head. "Not me. The miracle was always inside her. I just helped her take the steps." Then came the turning point. The federal regulators scheduled a formal hearing to review Evan's work and the brace. News crews from Sacramento, San Francisco, and Los Angeles gathered outside the garage. Social media had exploded, and hashtags like Mechanic Miracle and Walk Again Challenge were trending nationwide. People shared videos of Lily walking, tagging friends, schools, and hospitals. Inside the hearing room, Evan presented the brace to a panel of experts. He demonstrated the precise balance points, the shock-absorbing mechanisms, and the new lightweight design. Lily walked across the room under his guidance, smiling confidently. Even skeptical board members were stunned. Data, precision, and heart had proven themselves far beyond theory. Finally, after hours of questions and tense silence, the panel chair spoke. "Mr. Evan Harris, your design is unprecedented. You have created a brace that is safe, effective, and most importantly, changes lives. We are authorizing a special license under expert supervision to allow further development and distribution. Congratulations." The room erupted with applause. Margaret and Lily hugged Evan tightly, tears streaming freely. Zoe jumped up and down, cheering. For the first time in over a decade, hope wasn't just a word, it was reality. Word of the hearing spread quickly. Families across California reached out to Evan, asking for guidance, support, and collaboration. Doctors, initially skeptical, began studying his designs. News outlets ran feature stories about the Sacramento mechanic who had outshone billion-dollar institutions, capturing hearts and inspiring thousands. Months later, Evan officially opened Harris Mobility Solutions, a small rehabilitation engineering center. The garage had transformed, light-filled workspaces, adaptive equipment, and walls covered with sketches, calculations, and photographs of patients taking their first steps. Lily trained there daily, now a physical therapy assistant, helping children and adults reclaim mobility. Margaret became a partner in the center, using her resources to ensure families who couldn't afford care received it for free. Zoe continued learning alongside her father, already dreaming of improving designs and expanding access. The small Sacramento garage had become a beacon of hope. Evan stood outside one evening, watching the sun set over the city. Lily ran barefoot across the courtyard, her laughter echoing through the streets. He smiled, thinking of Miguel, the brother he had lost, and whispered, "I kept my promise. We did it." This wasn't just a story about a father, a billionaire, or a brave young girl. It was proof that perseverance, skill, and compassion could break barriers money and status could not. That even in the face of a rigid system, humanity could triumph. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring stories of hope, courage, and everyday miracles. Hit the like button to share this journey and comment below, what would you do if you had the chance to change someone's life forever? Turn on notifications so you never miss a story that reminds us all, kindness, determination, and belief can move mountains, even when the world says it's impossible.